When Gotham Knights was first announced back at DC Fandom in 2020, I was a humongous ball of excitement, offering so much of what I loved about Batman and DC in one incredible announcement trailer. It ticked all the right boxes for me. The Bat family finally getting some big video game representation, WB Montreal being freed from the shackles of the Arkhamverse to tell their own story, the promise of co-op, Bat cycles, the shock of Bruce Wayne being dead, and above all else, adopting the Court of Owls storyline. But this was as exciting as it ever got in the lead up to the actual release of Gotham Knights just over 2 years later, after being initially delayed from 2021 to 2022. From mixed previews to weirdly rolled out trailers and gameplay, the hype train never quite left the station for Gotham Knights, and there was no real surprise when it launched to middling reviews and a real sense of from a lot of fans. Today, I want to talk about where I feel Gotham Knights went wrong, and if they ever make a sequel, just how they can rectify it. So for context, I've beaten Gotham Knights twice, normally and then on the New Game Plus mode, and I had a mint time despite initial performance issues with the game at launch, which, as far as I'm aware, are now ironed out, at least on PC. Batman and the Bat family are up there with my favourite media period. I grew up with the Batman animated series, which gradually grew the Bat family throughout the years of production and episodes that aired. From Nightwing's sick of Christmas sticks, to Red Hood just looking like the coolest geezer in the DC universe. In the lead up to Gotham Knights, it was compared a lot to Marvel's Avengers by Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics, with its RPG leveling mechanics and its loot and gear score. Whilst Avengers is now a live service that is in fact dead and just on live support, it's clear that Gotham Knights was designed to be similar before a last minute pivot away from a games as a service, likely due to the poor launch of Avengers and following antics. There are NPCs in the game like Lucius Fox that give out daily repeatable missions alongside the Penguin that give you gear or materials to upgrade that gear to legendary and so on and so forth. Now, a lot of people pin Gotham Knights' problem down to this fact, that it was developed for live service and then it has this annoying loot and gear score system in. For me that is an issue, but it's not the problem. You can find this complaint discussed across other people's reviews and conversations about the games, but I have a different complaint. See, keeping in line with the comparison of Marvel's Avengers, when it launched there was the same sentiment across the board for that game's reviews, that the live service element of the game sucked, but the campaign itself was a great story, telling the story of the reassembling of the Avengers from their number one fan, Kamala Khan, and how you view helping, joining, and then eventually reassembling them from her eyes. It had heart, character, emotion, and fun with her at the centre of it. A well-crafted campaign by Crystal Dynamics, and this is where Gotham Knights, it failed for me. This is where they made the mistake that ultimately didn't just kill the Bat, but it drowned it of any hope of a Lazarus Pit resurrection. Gotham Knights' campaign and story on paper should tick every single box for me. Big stakes of Batman being dead, a focus on the Bat family having to take on the heavy responsibility and weight that the Bat once carried, all while finding out that Gotham has had a secret organisation controlling it for centuries, the Court of Owls. Scott Snyder's New 52 run is my personal favourite Batman comic run I've ever read, because it has exceptional Batman stories, but it incorporates the wider Bat family. These characters, they mean a lot to me. It was this run that introduced the Court of Owls, a revelation that shook Batman to his very core, taking everything that he thought he once knew about Gotham and flipping it on its head. So like I say, Gotham Knights, it should be an easy slam dunk. Loosely adapt the storyline, pin it on the Bat family, and yet it does absolutely nothing interesting with it. And most of all, this is where the biggest disappointment of Gotham Knight lies for me. This is not a good Bat family story. In fact, it's not even a Bat family story at all. The game's campaign can be played with one other person via online co-op, which is untethered, which you have to give credit to WB Montreal for this. It's very unique and a welcome addition, and I had a lot of fun with it. Yet, each cutscene is unique to the hero you're playing as. Nightwing will have a slightly different cutscene and dialogue to Red Hood and so on and so forth. Which, in fairness, it sounds kinda cool, but it just didn't land for me. The game was marketed and sold as a Bat Family story, and it is not. It's a Nightwing story, or a Red Hood story, or a Batgirl story. Even in co-op, yes, there are a few cutscenes of the Bat Family working together to figure some stuff out, but it never feels with real stakes, or as a unit, as a real Bat Family. The Bat Family works because they're all so unique from one another. There should be tension, disputes, and at times fights that break out across the films, the comics, whatever. Even in the final chapter of the game, when Gotham is in peril and you have to stop the evil at its source, it's just your damn character trying to stop it, not the entire Bat Family. I mean, I don't even know what the rest of them are doing. Like, trying to find a better cover of Living La Vida logo for that Harley mission maybe? I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. Everyone should be there for the final act. This should be a Bat Family story. I commend WB Montreal for trying to warrant multiple playthroughs by having 4 unique cutscenes per actual cutscene, depending on who you're playing with. But this is a Bat Family story, and holy cow Batman, this is not a Bat Family story. In fact, the best Bat Family moment comes after the main campaign is over. After! In an optional cutscene that most people won't even view. There are moments in the story where there is grief, and the burden looks to weigh heavy on a few, but it's quickly brushed aside and moved on from, and there's just no impact to it. These characters were all brought into Bruce's world, all protected by him, trained and nurtured, so when Batman dies at the start of the game, you feel their pain. But you never feel it after that, and that's such a shame and a waste. Dick Grayson, a boy whose parents died at a similar age to Bruce's, the first Robin and the most senior member of the group. Barbara, whose dad is now gone having worked closely with Bruce, and she's been shot in the back, but thanks to some good old comic book shenanigans, she still fights. Jason Todd, a man who has literally died and been brought back to life. There should be disagreements, tension, grief, burdens, regret, but ultimately a moment of coming together as the Bat Family, that they are now the Gotham Knights, that they can continue the legacy of the Batman in their own way, that the criminals should fear them. But that just doesn't happen. In one of Bruce's final lines he says, "Together, you're stronger than the Batman could ever be." And yet, outside of the first mission, they are never once fighting crime together. There was so much potential here, feelings of a lack of trust, the shock revelation of the court rocking the Bat Family. It should lead to further accusations. Could Jim Gordon have been involved? Did Bruce know? Was he keeping things from them? And the court themselves, they do nothing here. They have incredible looking locations and hideouts, and the Talons are cool for a mission or two, but after that, it's quickly overshadowed, pun intended if you played the game, by another villainous group with worse intentions. My problem also lies by the fact that by having 4 unique cutscenes, we end up with 4 generic feeling ones as opposed to one specialised, highly emotional, high stakes one. I also look at this as a wasted moment, as instead of just one incredible Nightwing story, or a story of the burden that Tim Drake, now being the last Robin, has to take on that mantle, the heavy mantle of the Bat, we end up with 4 forgettable knighthood stories of how they're taking the mantle on now. Recently, the new head of DC Studios, James Gunn, admitted that there is such a thing of superhero fatigue, saying, quote, "We love Superman, we love Batman, we love Iron Man, because they're these incredible characters that we have in our hearts. And if it becomes just a bunch of nonsense on screen, it gets really boring. But I get fatigued by most spectacle films, by the grind of not having an emotionally grounded story. It doesn't have anything to do with whether they're superhero movies or not. If you don't have a story at the base of it, just watching things bash each other, no matter how clever those bashing moments are, no matter how clever the designs and the visual effects are, it just gets fatiguing, and I think that's very, very real." End of quote. Now, he's obviously talking more so about the movies and the recent backlash that the MCU movies have got, but I think those principles can be directly applied here. Batman dying is the biggest free shot of being able to tell an emotionally grounded story, and yet they still fumbled the bag. WB Montreal made the bold decision to set this in their own Batman universe, away from the Arkhamverse, and the expectations that come with that, And I think that's completely fair. But even if you set yourself apart from it, at its heart, you are still telling a Batman story. The reason the Arkham games are so loved is that each one, even WB Montreal's own Arkham Origins, tells a really good Batman story that is emotionally grounded, that has high stakes, meaningful and explored characters, all underpinned by one thing: the Batman. Who he is, what he does, and why he does it. After I finished Gotham Knights, the only real knight that I felt had any kind of real purpose to him was Jason Todd, because now he has a second chance and he can undo any wrongs. This brings me to the potential of a sequel. It's no secret that WB Montreal has already started work on their next game, and if job listings are to be believed, it'll be another game set in the DC universe, and actually this time entirely single player. Now, had Gotham Knights been entirely single player, I don't think it would have just been okay. There still would have been these problems. In fact, some of my best moments in the game came from this untethered co-op, being on opposite ends of Gotham fighting crime and then meeting halfway to stop a freeze gang in ice cold fashion. But going fully single player doesn't necessarily mean that it's not another Gotham Knights game. In fact, we only need to go back to Arkham Knight that had extremely great moments of dual team takedowns as the Bat family, taking down Penguin's caches with Nightwing, or finally getting revenge on the Riddler with Catwoman. Seamless combat that would allow a more refined, deliberate story with personal moments of each character, like a dedicated Nightwing protecting Bloodhaven for example, or Batgirl seeing the Joker again after he shot through her spine. Gotham Knights made major missteps when designing the game for what looked to be live service, but that doesn't mean it was all bad, and there are fundamentals that they can take into their next game, whether it is a Gotham Knights game or not. Now look, I'm not here to say that writing a good story is easy, and simply write better. But if you're telling a superhero story, the first pillar of any good superhero story is the fact that you can resonate with them, that it's grounded, that you have empathy and understanding for how they may feel and why they feel like that. Whatever they do next, I'm still excited to see it. And despite the problems that Gotham Knights launched with, I'd still love to see some DLC in the form of case files, because those Harley missions and Mr. Freeze missions, and particularly the Clayface mission, were all excellent. And I'd love to see some more of that come to Gotham Knights, because it has a really great Gotham and some brilliant hero kits, which are a lot of fun to play as. All in all, by trying to move away from Batman, they lost the central focus here of who to tell their story through and how to tell it. And just like the game's protagonist, the game's story buckled under the weight of the Bat. If you enjoyed this video, then please smash that like button. I really appreciate it. And if you're looking for more content on DC, and in particular DC video games, then I've got you covered, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And until next time, I'll see you in the next one. Same Bat place, same Bat channel.